I'm so sorry, guys. They're just trying again. So, Arina, can you check if she joined in?
Okay, I'm checking. No, I don't see her.
By the way, apologies to everyone who's tuned in. I just checked the chat box as well. These things happen, these little technical glitches. So if you can just give us and just bear with us for a few more minutes. Really, many apologies again. And thank you for tuning in. By the way, it's going to be a great discussion.
I'm going to go check what's happening now, okay?
Hello.
What is it, Saima?
Gee, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you, Saima. Well done.
Gee. But I can only see you, nobody else.
Okay,
Wait.
can you your camera on, please?
Yes.
आप अपना camera कर सकती हैं?
इसमें आवाज की वजह से इतनी कम आ रही, देखिए फुल उस पे है ये
Hello.
Please stop sharing screen.
Farina, can we just see Tariq's window?
So now you guys will be able to see each other.
Yay! Success. छोटी-छोटी खुशियां कितनी अच्छी लगती हैं.
Scott, turn your camera on, please.
We still haven't seen Tariq.
And yes, we're still waiting for Tariq to come in.
Hi.
There we go. Assalamualaikum.
Oh, great.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
Okay, so everyone is here. Saad, we can't see your screen. We can hear you, but we can't see your screen.
Saad, shift to data.
Check that. Also, I think we should begin now.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's
Hello,
start.
everyone.
Can you see me now?
Hi. Yes, we can see you.
Oh, okay.
Saad, I think your video has issues, but we're just going to start now. Hello. Hi, everyone. We are extremely sorry for the delay. We were sorting out our technical issues. I'm Farina, and on behalf of the British Council, I welcome you all to our digital book launch event, Pakistan, A Fashionable History by Meher Hussain and Saad Sheikh. We are very excited that you were all able to join us today on this platform. Before we start, I will be making some announcements in terms of the house rules that we follow around here, and we would recommend that all of you do the same as well. Please note that you have to keep your cameras and mics off at all times to avoid disruption and to preserve internet bandwidth. You can drop any questions that you have in the chat box, and please keep them relevant to the topic. Our moderator for the day, Ms. Sonia Rahman, will be taking your questions from the chat box. Please also note that this is a safe online space for our partners, team, and event attendees, and no disturbance will be tolerated during the event. We reserve the right to remove anyone who causes disruption during. Please also note that this event will be recorded for quality insurance purposes. Sonia, I invite you to take the stage now. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Farina. Thank you very much. And thank you for giving us, all of us, this fantastic platform to highlight Meher and Saad's magnum opus on the history and the evolution of the Pakistani fashion industry. Everyone, as Farina said, that we will be taking in your questions whenever we have a pocket of free time in this 1.5 hours. We just want to make this conversation interactive as possible, and we don't want you guys to get bored, and it should be fun and entertaining. Okay, Meher and Saad. Meher, I'll start with you first. This book took over 2 years to compile, research, write, put together. It's finally out. It came out last month. How does it feel?
Hello, thank you, British Council, for giving us this wonderful platform. I'd like to thank our panelists and Sonia Rahman for agreeing to come on with us. Saad, thank you. Sonia, I've been asked this question many times, how do I feel? And to be very honest, I just feel relieved. People were thinking that I would be overjoyed, I would, cry tears of excitement, but I'm just so relieved that after 3 years, in fact, this September is the 4th year, the book is finally out. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that the people featured in the book were looking forward to it. I had promised them a book. And so for 3 years, I've been carrying that responsibility with me that I have to deliver a book. I've promised it to these people. They've taken time out of their lives to speak to us. They've shared their archives with us. And it just weighed so heavily on me that the book just wasn't happening for some reason or the other. So I'm just so relieved that it's finally out.
Absolutely. Tariq and Tapu, I'm going to ask you the same question, but I'll start with Tapu first since he's been waiting for quite a while. Tapu, you and Tariq both are the pillars, 2 of the pillars of the Pakistani fashion industry. Don't be humble, it's a fact. So how did it feel when you had 2 young journalists coming to you and saying, hey, we want to write a book about the history of Pakistani fashion? Can you help us, and can we interview you? How did it feel, Tapu?
I felt quite wonderful because this is something which should have been done. I can't believe it took so many years for it to be done. And as for us being the pillars, I don't think we are the pillars. We're probably the pillars after Solomon dropped them down. Because, we are sort of in the past tense where fashion is concerned. And it's really nice that Meher and Saad have put this together. It's really, I don't know how, I'm so overjoyed that it actually exists, because something like this should have existed way long ago, like years ago it should have appeared, but late, but it's beautiful. So I'm really glad that it's here.
Absolutely. Tariq, tell me one thing. You're very vocal about the fashion industry. You are so, entertaining. You're so, you're so verbose, and, you have really held Saad and Meher's hand through this process, giving them insights about the fashion industry. Tell me something, going by what Tapu said right now, why do you think in all these years no one's ever written a book on the Pakistani fashion industry? Why?
It was, Meher and Saad, thank you. Thank you, British Council. Thank you, Sonia. Hey, Tapu. Sorry to keep you waiting. As Tapu said, this should have been done a very, very long time ago, and I'm just so glad that better late than never. But I think Sonia realized very early in her findings that this book, there's so many egos in the fashion industry, and there were only so many of us alive in the 80s. So, we have managed to upset a few people, which is, you win some, you lose some. But I think the people that have been a part of it and that that have been there supporting this project have been there since day one. And I've been a supporter since the day they first called me, and I said, anything you need and want, anything you want to talk about. But as I said, there's so many egos in the fashion industry that I'm glad that they had the choice to put who and what and where and when and how. and it's, you know, finally been done, and it's out there for everybody to see and to enjoy. It's a little bit of a history lesson. It's a bit of a pictorial treat through the sort of archives of everyone's lives, and it's just wonderful. I mean, I think it's a super effort on their part, because they had to go through so much to even accomplish this, and hats off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Saad, tell me one thing. I do know that the process of really getting archival images of fashion shoots, fashion photography from the past till today has been a harrowing experience for yourself and your co-author Meher. Can you tell us a little bit about what you had to endure going to Karachi, Lahore? What did it entail?
Oh, well, you see, first of all, thank you for having us here. We're so glad we're doing the digital launch for the book. Tariq Saab and Tapu Saab were just gifts to us. I would say, you know, Tariq Saab, the structure book, a lot of people who, you know, the egos we couldn't handle, they're not in the book, for example. And the people who are really nice to us, they are in the book, for example. So the archives, yes, I think the problem is that we don't really have that concept here, you know, of archiving visual images in that way. So obviously very, and from the very start, you know, when we actually decided to do, I wanted it to be historical.
Yeah.
Late 90s and early 2000s. So I wanted, you know, like a nice chunk of vintage ads. And obviously, you know, I was always fascinated by how people like, you know, Tapu Javeri and Tariq Amin, you know, the original style mafia as they were known, actually end up making it, whether it was accidental or whatever, you know. But
yeah.
So I was always fascinated. You know, mediums back then were very different. You know, nothing existed back then. Maybe it's easier to be a fashion photographer nowadays than it was obviously back in the days when this thing did not even exist in that sense. So that is, so it was also like a personal journey. I wanted to know these things as well. I'm not an expert on fashion, nor is Meher. I am not a fashion journalist even. I'm not even a fashion photographer for that matter. So it was always a very journalistic insight and take, you know, into this book. And obviously that made it difficult for us because we wanted images and archives. So a lot of doors were shut on our face, you know, when we started looking for images. So obviously I had to go to Karachi, and that is where I met Tapu, you know, at his studio. He was very kind enough to, you know, let me copy all these archives. But obviously some of the other publications were not as cooperative as we would have thought them to be. We don't have the kind of public libraries here in Pakistan, you know, where you can just go and start, you know, archiving and scanning stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to go to a lot of these old bookstores in Karachi. Luckily, I was able to find some of these old magazines. And I think Newsline, Miss Rehana Hakim, all these magazines have also shut down, which is a tragedy in itself. There is no Herald anymore. There is no Newsline anymore. I mean, you know, Tapu and Tariq and all these, the original style mafia can tell you how important these magazines were, you know, back when they started their journeys, their respective journeys. So all those magazines, while they were shutting down, you know, I was in their offices literally begging for archives. And I'm glad we were able to get a good chunk of the archives, which now form a part of the book.
Absolutely. Meher, speaking about what Saad just brought up, I mean, exactly, both of you have never covered fashion. Meher, your experience, your writing has primarily been focused on current affairs, on social issues, political commentary, and fiction as of late. And then Saad as well, he's an all-rounder photojournalist who's also focused more on social issues, etc. Why fashion?
There are several reasons for that. Number one, I don't believe that one has to be a specialist in fashion to be able to write on it, because one of the misconceptions of books is that it's a fashion book. It's not just a fashion book. I mean, yes, the original idea had been to have books such as you see in Dior, Chanel, where they have their, you know, collections photographed and that. But once we delved inside, I discovered, maybe it's the investigative journalist in me, I don't know, but I began to realize that what the pioneers of fashion, the designers, they would not have been designers had it not been for people such as the photographers, the models, the makeup artists, the fashion journalists, the publishers who set up those magazines. And I began to put the pieces together, and what emerged was that this is a social history. Fashion, being personally, having grown up in a fashion capital like London, I was always aware it's not just a three-piece lawn jora. It's not just having your hair done. It's not just having your face on. It's a reflection of the times. It's art. It's a business. And it's also about creativity and pushing that boundary and surviving.
Absolutely.
And so all these factors came into being. I began to realize that, look, we have to give fashion its due credit. It's not just about cuts. It's not just about the dabka, the sitara, and the kahan ki kadhai hai. It's a lot more than that. It's about an expression of a country, of a nation that's gone through so much. And this is misconception. The industry came about as a political reaction. That's not true. Politics is one side, industry is on another side. I think one of the most things that I loved was that this entire concept came about organically. It's as Tapu Javeri said, you know, we would just hang out at Tariq's flat. Rizwan would come over with a joke.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go for it.
I've been making all these notes because I'm trying to jump in. We were just having fun.
Please do. Go for it. Go for it. Please do. Songs, I'm passing it on to Tariq Saab. If that's okay.
Because you guys are investigative journalists, that's why you've done justice to this book, because you're not in anybody's camp. You're not in, you know, you heard it as it is. You took the information in, you investigated it, and you wrote about it. You know, whether good, bad, ugly, but you know, none of you guys, I think the best part is that you aren't fashion people, and that you actually had to find out about me and Tapu and the rest of the style mafia and all of that. Tapu and myself, I mean, when it comes to the style mafia, Fifi's there, Rizwan is there. We were having fun. You know, there was no money in those days. There was no money. There was fashion now is all about. You guys have opened a Pandora's box. In the next 5 years, there's going to be 500 books about Pakistan.
So true.
Some won't even call Tapu and myself because we made it to yours. The idea is the fact that because you guys are not fashion people, what you have written is, you know, pretty much the truth. And that is what upsets people, and it makes people feel left out. And you know, mujhe nahi bulaya, or why is I'm not even in there? I said, because you weren't born in the 80s. And yeah, for God's sake. So, you know, they guys were having fun. I would call Tapu. There were no, you know, there was no, I would say, look, let's just do a shoot tonight. And, you know, that would be our fun. We were having fun. We were creating history and having fun. There is no more fun in that.
We didn't know.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We didn't know we were creating history. Sorry, I have to say that. But an outsider's opinion on the fashion history is the only way you could have gone ahead. And thank you for doing that, because otherwise, as Tariq said, the style mafia may have been just the five of us, but there was a Lahore camp, there was another camp which you know, worked with only Akhbar-e-Jahan. There was a whole lot of other people around there. Yes, they petered away along the way, and maybe the direction to fashion was more along the lines of Herald and Newsline and Fashion Collection and Extra. But there were other things there, which I guess they're not there anymore.
I hate to sound like an elitist person, but art and things like fashion are very elitist things, unfortunately. And we were the ones that probably made an impact. You know, others were there very much so, but because we were savvy, we were connected, we were Angrezi medium, as they call it. You know, whatever, however you want to say. America returned, but we made. I mean, nobody was ever given a credit for a makeup and a hairdo. it was me that was given the first credit. It was in Herald magazine, and there was a big issue there because Fifi had done an interview of mine, and there was for 3 months letters to the editor going back and forth saying, you know, why do you have to discuss an upmarket nai? So, you know, I don't know if you remember that, Tapu, but back in the day, you know, stuff like that was pretty controversial. It raised a lot of eyebrows. And, you know, our work was very noticeably different. We didn't do the baby blue and pink eyeshadow, you know. We had Sara Akhtar. We had Sara, who was like a little fashion urchin. She was like a little punk. She had this little punk happening. All our friends were our models. We used to photograph them. My wife included, Atia included, Sadie included, Bibi included, Alia Zaid. All of these girls were people that were not really models. They were beautiful girls who had a lot of style, who had a lot of class, and it showed. You know, we showed a very intelligent side of fashion because at that time there was also the, you know, Mundu Gundu Pappu pose happening. You know. It was quite mainstream.
Tariq, I just have to interject. I just wanted to interject and ask both you and Tapu this. Do you think it was because the, you know, fashion industry was really new? I mean, it's a generational thing. There was a lot of room for trial and error. And as with any art form, that trial and error period is the most fun. Do you think that's what it is?
I think we were challenged more by ourselves and by what we thought of ourselves and what we thought was fashion. Then really anything we saw, because what, you know, when we started, at least when me and Tariq and all started, that we had seen nothing but that Munnu Pappu pose. Okay. And, and it also had been elevated. It's not like it hadn't been elevated. It had been elevated by other photographers brought into the studio. But we were not going to keep that mold. In fact, the main thing about us was that we wanted to break the mold. So, and as I've always thought and always said, you know, when you have a bunch of creative friends, there is nothing stopping you, because you can push the boundaries of fashion, of any creativity, just because you're so comfortable in that environment that, you know, you do nothing but try and beat your own your own, I guess, heights. You have to just cross those.
Absolutely.
Tapu, we had a very different approach. We had to give results because we were pushing our own agenda. Fashion was something never covered by Herald, and we really wanted to be there because they started giving credit to everybody. Photography by Tapu Javed, makeup by Tariq Amin. You know, so we were also very, very, I don't know, what's the, hungry, you know. We were really, really hungry to be noticed, to have a voice, you know, and to be put into the part of the fashion fraternity. And we did that. We helped each other. We didn't bring each other down. Regardless, there was a lot of camaraderie back in the day. I've done shoots with Asif Shadad. I've done shoots with, you know, all the Lahore people as well. But, you know,
Asif Shadad used to stay at my house when they first came. When I first met them, they were just two photographers who had bought me like a 5x4, a whole booklet. And they said, we want to be fashion photographers. And I said, come to my house in Karachi. They stayed with me for, I think, 2 months. And during that time, I introduced them to everyone in Herald, and that's where they started from. And to this day, they acknowledge that.
So why the Lahore and Karachi camps? And I'm going to pose this question. I'll start with Meher first. Meher, in your opinion, as a journalist, you've been following fashion, you've written this book now. Why is there so much animosity between these camps? Why?
You know, one of the things that struck me was that the animosity lies amongst the designers. That's one of the first things that struck me, that I'd always heard, you know, there's a Lahore-Karachi ladai when it comes to fashion. And I could never pinpoint why it was there. I started working on this book. And I realized through the interviews that we had with the non-designers that they would always talk about Lahore with so much fondness, and the Lahore-based makeup artists and the Lahore-based photographers. I kept thinking, is this just one of those societal things? Jahan pe ji Lahore Karachi ki ladai hai. It was only when I delved into the designers and I discovered that, my goodness, this is a hot mess here. You know, you've got these two girls, you've got these two divas, and they don't get along, even though they once worked together. And I think it's really sad that we have that, because from what I've seen, from what I've written about, this industry had a glorious past.
Yeah.
The present does not compare to it at all. And I genuinely feel that there needs to be an intervention by the designers, because look, the non-designers have done their part. They've set their standards in photography, in creativity, in makeup, in hairstyling, whatever it is. But what's gone wrong with the designer element? It's their egos that have taken over. And I would really understand if there were any proper divas. You know, a lot of calling journalists low life and not really knowing what's happening outside of the clique doesn't really mean diva behavior, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So I think designers need to up their game.
Absolutely. Tariq, what's your take? When will this competition finish, this animosity?
The competition will never finish. I doubt it. I've tried for the last almost 4 decades for it to at least try to iron it out, but it's not going to. It's also the fact that, you know, now fashion is it is a different ball game. There's a lot of money involved. There's a lot of money involved. You know, we came from a generation where Tappu had to give 6 outfits delivered in 2 rolls of film. So we would limit our, you know, like we knew what we wanted. So we would use our work and make sure that we were, you know, getting the right thing. Today, you can pick up a camera and take 10,000 photographs and spend a week trying to find out which one is going to be picked.
Yeah.
So I mean, we had a very
absolutely.
I really personally.
Sorry, continue, Tariq.
No, go ahead, please.
No, tell me, you were going to say something. You said, I personally think.
No, I personally think that, you know, that we were trying to do stuff which was out of the box. We were trying to get noticed. We were trying to create, we never meant to create a rift between Lahore and Karachi. It's always, you know, it's always somehow everybody in the industry have thought that, you know, we guys have been born with some kind of a silver spoon in our mouth, and we, you know, we just were, like I said, at the right place at the right time. We were connected. We knew how to network. I mean, in those days there was no such word even, but we were doing it, and we got our work published, noticed, and you know, that's what. And we've all done it, you know. All of us have done it together. All of us have on our own. All of us have been a part of something, and we've always maintained our, you know, professional respect for each other and our friendships. It's never been. I mean, never been about, you know, many. I mean, people are selected because they want to work with the people who can deliver them the results. Tomorrow, if somebody was to say, would you rather have Tappu at this shoot or this nude photography? I would say Tappu, because I know Tappu. I have, you know, I trust his judgment and his work. He's an amazing, you know, he's an artist. So I don't have to question his aesthetic. I don't have to question his professionalism. He will be on time. He would deliver everything. You know what I'm saying? And I don't. There's one thing less for me to worry about, and that's you know, that's the big thing.
We have a very good question from Ursula Nawaz, and Tappu, I'll pose it to you and then to Saad. He's basically asking, may I ask, how does he see the future of fashion and photographing the industry? What's the future of fashion photography?
Well, fashion photography has now gone into, I guess, digital entirely, because with no magazines around, so you're never really going to have an archive the way we have archives in books and all. So what's going to happen is in the future, you're just going to have a lot more electronic material. In fact, even now, designers don't even bother printing out brochures. They've got everything online on their websites and their Instagrams. So that's going to make photography, I guess, quicker. So when you don't take that much effort to make something good, you're just going to go back to a mediocre. So I see a lot more catalog style shoots, and maybe somebody fun will turn up who'll, push the limit again and create, maybe some, I don't know, fantasy imagery. But at this point, I just see, I see fashion becoming more mediocre, but more accessible to the public. You have to realize that, when you creating fashion is fantasy. Okay, when you're creating fantasy doesn't create money. Fantasy is something, it might make it for the movies, but not when, you create the fantasy, but nobody can buy into that fantasy, which is why you have couture. So couture is the fantasy, and the mainstream is what you would call, street fashion.
Absolutely.
So that's what's happening now. If you see all these fabulous designers we have, including your Rizwan Begs and all, they will, they have their 10 clients who want that couture piece, but they have 100 clients who want the couture piece, but 400 rupees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fashion is now becoming, I guess, more egalitarian. Would be a horrible word to say. Yeah.
That's a really good point. Well said, Tapu. Saad, what about you? I mean, you're part of the millennial generation. How do you see fashion photography, primarily fashion photography? How do you see it evolving, especially now when in the midst of a pandemic? We're having a book launch online. I mean, it's very trippy, to be honest. In your point of view, how is it going to change?
Well, to be honest, kind that we have our book more exciting and inspiring than compared to more of the recent work. It's very rare that you find something exciting, in the more of the contemporary stuff. So so
Saad, you're lagging a little bit.
Point of view, another 5-10 years. Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's just lagging a little.
Yeah.
Continue.
So I was saying that, from a publishing point of view, I feel that coffee table books like ours still have some sort of a future. People would still like some sort of a physical format, but for most of the other mediums, for example, even from a news point of view, till now, magazines, they're all still now. So, and obviously, compared to, like, for example, Tapu time, they discussed this whole concept of films. So yeah, the medium has gotten really, affordable in terms of photography equipment. If you want to be a filmmaker, if you want to be a photographer, the talent and creativity is a different thing. But I'm saying that the equipment has gotten more affordable over the years. So you do have.
Sorry, Saad.
Lost Saad.
Okay. Okay, we'll just wait till he comes back. Tariq, I have a question for you. In fact, I wanted to ask. Yeah, now we can hear you. Yeah. Saad, you were saying?
Okay. I am having some. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly go on to this question because I think the conversation is going towards a very exciting direction. Let me start with Tariq. Tariq, the Pakistani identity, art and culture is a huge component of how we see ourselves, how we raise our families, how we present ourselves to the world. Ek to you brought up a very important point that aajkal everything has become commercialized. But do you think commercialization does adulterate the arts? Isn't it important though to make money?
Sure, it is, but not at the cost. You know, fashion is not. It's become an entertainment now. You know, it has become something it should never have become. Fashion should be like Tapu said, fantasy. Fashion should be fun. You know, we all take fashion very seriously in Pakistan. If you're not wearing the three-piece safina, you know, lawn, you're not fashionable. You know? If you're not wearing something just off the runway, you're not fashionable. I mean, I think that, you know, fashion is something that we buy, and style is something completely different. Style is something that you're born with. You either have it or you don't.
Yeah.
So people think just because they spend money on themselves, they're looking stylish or they're looking fashionable, and that's not the case. You know, we tend to go whole hog for, you know, one outfit from one designer. It's so over the top that you can't even repeat it.
Yes.
You know, all your friends will say, "Acha, this is the same jora you were wearing at the last wedding." But you invest in a black Gucci dress, and you can wear that 1,000 times, and you can ham it up in different ways by changing the accessories, wearing a jacket. You know, you can change it around. So that investment in the Gucci dress is so much more, but so much more worth it. So much more worth of it as an item of fashion or clothing or identity or whatever you want to call it. We and you know, in Pakistan, we don't buy fashion. We buy an accessory and think that that is complementing our, you know, sapphire kurti, and you know, we buy the glasses with a big monogram. We'll buy a bag with a flashy logo. We'll buy a chappal with a Tory Burch thing, you know, saying that I spend money on myself. Which woman has a Louis Vuitton outfit or a you know, a Prada suit? No, I find very few women will have that. They will have 1,000, you know, kurtis from X, Y, and Z, and here and there and everywhere. And fashion has become a 1,500 rupee kurti, your last season's leggings, and some, you know, like the cheapest thing you can buy from a designer brand as a fashion accessory, and that is style in Pakistan, which is really quite kind of sad because it's a bit of a cookie cutter look that every woman is going for. None of the women have an identity. They all look like each other. The lips are the same, the hair is the same, the clothes are the same. You know, I don't know.
Tapu, what's your take?
Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go on, Meher.
No, I just like to add that exactly what Tariq has just said was the inspiration that triggered inside of me to do a book on the fashion industry. It was exactly what he's just described. You know, at 7 in the morning, seeing a woman wearing that lawn ka joda and blow-dried hair and face packed on perfectly in 4-inch heels, child off to school, and me sitting there, you know, in tracks and t-shirt. It was like, what is going on?
Tapu, what's your take?
Well, I sort of don't agree with them, but I'm going to keep quiet on this. I find that I think at least millennials now have a very, I think, weirdly egocentric fashion because everyone's trying to be on Twitter and whatever, TikTok. So they're all dressing differently, not the same anymore. I think maybe till about 2008 or something. Then there those from the maybe early 2000s. Yes, there was everybody became, you know, these cookie cutter images of each other. But I think now things are changing. I see the millennials, you know, wearing purple hair, and I see that happening. Didn't happen before. I mean, you had one oddity. You used to work for Tariq who had purple hair, but other than that, I have not seen that until now. With people like Billie Eilish and her inspiration in Pakistan. So that is a movement for personal identity, which has moved.
I love that.
But yes, I think fashion has not expressed itself since, I guess, the Style Mafia disbanded. And I don't think we were responsible for it to express itself. But I think what happened was that money came and made a play in the middle. So when you talk about, I guess all these designers, which at that time were being very creative and they were creating work with us, they probably didn't make the amount of money they make now.
Absolutely. But that's a really good point. But don't you think in a way we are upnowifying a global identity rather than a Pakistani identity? What do you think about that?
Well, yes and no at the same time, because somehow, even though none of us really bothered to try, but the Shalwar Kurta has never left Pakistan. It went internationally for a little while. It was lost. Okay, Pakistani Western clothes came here. They don't really work here. The Shalwar Kurta is now indelibly stamped on the Pakistani identity. Okay, what we've done with it has been insane. At one point, the Shalwar went to bipolar phases when there were like 1 million of them. But I think our identity will always be the Shalwar Kurta.
Absolutely. Meher, what do you think? Pakistani identity, and Saad, I'm coming to you about this question as well. Meher, the Pakistani identity vis-a-vis fashion, do you think we are incorporating a global identity or are we forming a new one? What's your take?
I think we have a merger. I see new brands, by young people, where they're now utilizing our homegrown grassroots craft in a creative manner. So for example, at one point you might have seen block printing just on kurtas. Now you see block printing on scarves, not dupattas, scarves. You see it, fulkari embroidery, for example, was done for shawls that mothers would give to their daughters in their trousseau. Now you see that same fulkari being done on these funky handbags. So I think there is ownership of Pakistani identity, but there's also the need to keep up with trends, to need to innovate, to have a market that's acceptable by non-Pakistani markets. So definitely commercialization is coming in, but I'm really pleased to see our generation squandered this opportunity. So it's heartening to see the new generation owning craft and blending in commercialization as well.
Wow, excellent point. Saad, what do you think? What do you make of it? The Pakistani identity.
I think we've always been very confused, over the years, who to copy, who not to copy. We've had different influences and inspirations over the years, and there's this national identity crisis as well. We try to be like the Arabs. The Arabs don't like us, and with the guys next door, we also have that kind of a disconnect with them as well. Religion comes in, culturally we're the same. So we've always been confused, yes. And I think our generation has been through that confusion more. But yes, I think what Tapu pointed out, I think when I look at the younger lot of people, I think they're not as confused as we were maybe. And they have this internal thing where they are trying to be maybe not unique, but they're trying to be different. I see younger kids in my family, nephews and nieces, and all. So I see them trying to have some sort of, more, control over their identity. So yeah, I think that's something positive maybe. Yeah.
Tariq, what's your take? I remember a couple of months ago, I came to your salon and you were talking to me about the new crop of models in the Pakistani fashion industry. But I want to know your perspective vis-a-vis the overall overarching Pakistani identity vis-a-vis Pak fashion. I know you're very hopeful and you are a positive person. However, where do you see it? How do you see it evolving? Local fashion, that is, from models, stylists, and photographers.
you know, it all, it's kind of tough to put into perspective because nothing is working together. There are pockets, you know, interesting things. There are pockets of people, you know, just recently, I was planning a 3-city show which had to be cancelled because of COVID. It's Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi. And I said, okay, I want to have 20 models, 10 girls, 10 boys, and put together a budget, please. And so the guy came up to me with like some astronomical 50 lakh rupee number to hire 20 people. I was like, are you crazy? Am I mad? Who has 50 lakh rupees to pay for models? Oh, एक जोड़ी के लिए मैं 5 लाख लेती हूँ, एक जोड़ी के लिए मैं 3 लाख लेती हूँ. So, you know, there are no models left anymore. Everybody who's on the ramp in any of these variety programs, which are so called whatever weeks you want to call them, you know, they have all these people sashaying up and down the runway who are not models. And all the designers want, you know, these TV actors and celebrities, and there's thus no model. You cannot have a show if you are a billionaire, and if you want to be in, that's why they put all these, you know, the media also is very responsible for bringing this about because they are the ones who have turned fashion into entertainment. And now everything that all these media companies, everything is in-house. They have their own stylists, they have their own models, they have their own, you know, they don't need to go anywhere. They can make it at home. They can. That's about it. Fashion is, it shouldn't be entertainment. You know, they are getting for some amount of money. They you know, all these designers pay to. Who doesn't have 3 lakh rupees to buy a slot in, you know, for a fashion designer? That's not a lot of money. 3 lakhs, 5 lakhs. Considering the models take 50 lakhs to, you know, display your clothes. I really don't think, you know, Rizwan needs a celebrity to make his clothes look good.
Very true.
You know, I don't think anybody needs a celebrity to make their clothes look good. It's just become the sort of mainstream thing. And I mean, after the budget was sent to me, I was like, forget this. I'm doing my own model hunt, and I found 6 kids in Islamabad, Lahore, and Karachi, 20 boys, 20 boys and girls from each city. That's 6. I've just started doing their makeovers, and very shortly they're going to be launched in another couple of weeks, inshallah. It's just, you need it. You need to invest. Everybody is like, you need to invest into the future. You need to invest into these people. You can't expect people to just come out of the woodwork, and that's where they're coming out from. And there's a lot of, I don't know what to say, happening in the fashion industry, but it's not what used to happen back in the day. It's, you know, there's the orange is the new black, and the number 2 is the new number 1. So I don't know. I don't know how else to put it. You can't.
Absolutely.
Extracurricular activities.
Well, Tapu. Tapu knows.
Okay, here's a question.
I think the one thing that it has done is it's made people realize, it's like, at least for myself personally, it's made me realize that we have a word which like nobody else has. And I didn't believe that till like very, very recently. You know, that, you know, and social media has also given me that feeling. I've never been, I mean, Tapu will vouch for me. I've never sent an email in my life. I don't have an email address. I'm not a techie person. I still write letters. You know, I have beautiful handwriting. That's why I write letters. You know, so there's certain things that are just, you know, make you feel relevant. I guess that's a good way to put it. And things like the book, things like Instagram has made me realize that, you know, you can have your own magazine. It's like, I feel like my Insta account is like my own little magazine. I put in there what I feel like, what my mood is, my work is, what my kids are doing, what my wife is doing, what the cats are up to. It makes me feel kind of relevant.
Yes,
in today,
true.
I'm not a millennial. I have grown up millennial kids. I guess that's what you call them. A young man. Duran is 29, mashallah.
Wow.
So it's and they've both been brought up around fashion, around my life, my work. They keep up with work since they were kids. They've been, and like for them, they're not into fashion at all, or grooming, or getting hairstyles made. Or I mean, Duran has had the same haircut for 30 years. People come out, just shave it off, and it grows back, and then shave it off again. I don't think I've ever cut his hair with a scissor. But getting back to the point, I think the kids of today are, they're so much more. They've had so many more. They haven't had the same kind of problems growing up that we had. Everything is so much easier. 40 years ago when we guys came back, I mean, it's really ridiculous, because we say, oh, the 80s, and that's like 40 years ago.
Wow.
It's really scary.
Yeah.
40 years ago, when I came back from college and I had I had one piercing, and I was like, Tapu, please do the other piercing as well. I remember that he did with a gun pierce my second ear. I mean, men didn't have earrings 40 years ago. Nobody had a shaved head. Everybody used to put a comb over. Now my look is like mainstream. Every second person looks like goatee and bald head. And dye my beard blue just so I don't look like everybody else. But that, fashion is, for the kids now, it's much easier for them. There's so much more acceptance. There's so much more. Everything was questioned, there was a lot of that used to happen. So the younger lot have a lot more into this industry because it has become acceptable, and the fact that now there's money in it. Parents don't mind you saying, I want to do fashion, because they think that, he's going to earn a lot of money.
Absolutely.
Years ago, my parents weren't worried about me. They said, this is a hobby. He'll come back and join the family business. They never thought that I could be able to make a living doing what I do.
Wow. Absolutely. Meher, you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yes. I was going to say that, how Tariq Amin discussed that being relevant. When I was writing this book, the day after I conducted his interview, I was on cloud 9 because I got my spark back, my mojo was back. And I remember telling someone that, you never believe who I spoke to. And they said, Acha, kaun? I said, Tariq Amin. And this lady, she looked at me and she said, you spoke to Tariq Amin? I said, yeah, I spoke. I had an interview with him last night, and she looked at me and she's like, was it the real Tariq Amin? And I said, yeah. And then she went, no, it must have been one of those fake ones. Na jani, asal wala to nahi ho sakta. Baat karega.
Tariq, as it is, with that regimental look, there must be so many fake Tariq Amins.
There are few.
All right, so I think we're almost hitting the 1 hour mark, and I just thought we'd just wrap up. Saad, I just wanted to ask you, with this book, your and Meher's book, Pakistan: A Fashionable History, what do you want future generations to take away from this book? What do you want them to learn from this book?
Yeah, so you see, I mentioned this thing about, the younger generation, the upcoming generation taking ownership. And I think what we've done is given them the history. We've had a lot of distortions in our history, in the textbooks that we are made to read in school, for example. And you would not expect to read about fashion maybe at school, especially in Pakistan, maybe. So I think what we've done is we've tried to document and, preserve a very important part of, Pakistan, which is it's not just the fashion industry, as Meher added. So I would want them to have this ownership and, take this, somehow eliminate or decrease the number of disconnections we have with our actual history, with our culture, with the grassroots, from the craftsmen to the fabric, to the people designing it, and, to the medium that brings this out in terms of photography and marketing. So and because I often mention this example, back when Coke Studio did, Atif Aslam's Tajdar-e-Haram, a lot of younger kids, they said, this is a lovely song. And a lot of them till date think this is an original song by Atif Aslam. Whereas, this entire Qawwali is quite an old Qawwali, has been sung by a lot of people, the Sabri brothers and whatnot. Yeah. So I remember telling this to a lot of them that, this is not Atif Aslam's original song. But you see, so this corporate, it was corporate, but they made some sort of an effort when they ran the behind the scenes. They mentioned that this original Qawwali and, all these people have sang. So I think it's a duty that we all have is to inform, especially the upcoming generation. So I would want younger kids, it's historical, it's about Pakistan and everything, but I would want them to read this book and, I would want them to have this. And from the recent feedback we've had, I've been very happy when some of the younger kids, they've actually bought the book, and yes, they have admitted that there's a lot of stuff they did not know about, but it was really good to see that, they wanted to take an ownership of this or something so important that is. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Well said, Meher. What about you? What do you want the younger lot to take away from your book?
Sonia, I've always maintained that this is just the first book. Now, Tapu has already got 2 books to his name and many other books to his name. But I think that it is very important that the people that he's written about, they should also continue to do their own books, and youngsters should go make an effort to research more on the social history and cultural history of Pakistan. None of it has been documented. Our archives are a mess. Like Tapu identified very correctly that there are no more magazines. And if we don't document these things, we're looking at a country that will never really know its past.
Wow.
And the fact that this, jokes aside, that this lady thought that there were fake Tariq Amins out there, just speak volumes about how little people know about the real person. And I've said this to you, you need to do your biography.
I'm going to hold you to that, Meher. I'm going to hold you to that.
Mine too. Mine too.
I think Tapu probably hates me the most because I've been nagging him from day one when I have a 4-hour interview with Tapu that I transcribed. And throughout, I kept thinking, why has this man never written this? Why has he never done this?
Wow.
These are very important stories, Sonia. They reveal more about our country than those books that are written through a political or strategic lens or, a non-Pakistani lens. Enough. They don't.
Whitewashed.
Whitewashed.
Yes. See, fashion has always been. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Fashion has always been Pakistan's dirty little secret because of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan. So fashion was never considered. I mean, if we were in burqas, it was a different story. Okay, but because we were pushing the limits of fashion, we were always the dirty little secret. And it's nice that this archive has been put out there in the form of a book, and it's nice that people can see the unwhitewashed version of where we came from and why you have fashion weeks and why you have whatever, So,
absolutely.
I want to thank the 2 of you. Definitely.
No, thank you for being part of it, Tapu and Tariq Saab and all the others.
Thank you for persevering. That's the main one.
I had a promise I had to deliver it to all of you because I remember saying that ye kitab hoegi and then realizing kab hoegi, kaise hoegi, wo to socha hi nahi tha, but hoegi sahi.
But speaking of which,
I did it. I did it. Both you and Saad
MashaAllah.
did it. You did it.
Absolutely.
Your books.
Yeah, and in fact, exactly what Meher is saying, Tariq and Tapu, you guys should write your books or hire ghostwriters. Seriously, because you guys are a wealth of knowledge and your stories, your journeys should be documented. Please don't laugh. We mean it.
Listen, if I write anything, I will never be able to live in this country. So when I get a passport which takes me away, I'll write and tell everyone the truth of everything.
When you write something, you will get a passport.
You will get a publisher abroad easily.
True.
Make sure you adopt me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for joining this session. I really wanted to thank Meher and Saad, both of you, our peers, your friends, for writing this fantastic book, and primarily thanking the old guard of the fashion industry, Tariq and Tapu, for collaborating with these two young journalists in putting this book together. Seriously, I think the old guard and the new guard should collaborate more often. Really, I think that's what's needed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'm up
Thanks
for
very-
it anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Safir.
Take care. Hafiz.